Our speaker for today, Dr. Ingo Ilya Mikkel, works for the Institute for Addiction Research and the Frankfurt University of Applied Sciences as the International Scientific Coordinator of the DAAD Exceed project, strengthening social work of NGOs in development cooperation to treat drug addiction. So from 1999 to 2017, he was the head of the Office of various drug commissioners in the Federal Ministry of Health in Berlin. So after his retirement in 2017, he served as the coordinator of the EU Drugs Action Against Program in Central Asia for Frankfurt University. As you can see, he is very committed to this cause, and as a sociologist and a consultant for the treatment of drug addiction, he was head of the drug and prison projects of the German AIDS Help in Berlin, as well as drug commissioner for the state of Bremen. He also served as the project manager in the fifth phase of the Central Asia Drug Action Program of the European Union in Bishkek and work with the Health Department of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes, UNODC in Vienna. So without further ado, I'll turn you over to our accomplished presenter, Dr. Ingo. Sir, you may have the floor and let me just share the screen. Okay, hold on. Oops.
Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation. I will, and I'm very helpful. It's very helpful that for me, but also for our project, that I can share our experiences with you. I will give you an overview on this project supported by the German Academic Exchange Service. But as already mentioned, I could share also my experiences from working in Central Asian countries and in China as well. So the next slide, please. Our project, Our project is part of the Exceed project or the Exceed program of the DAAD. That means that Excellent Centers for Exchange and Development has been launched. This program has been launched in 2009 with the aim of bringing together the involvement of German higher education institutions and their partners in developing countries and raising its public profile. And this initiative has also aiming to make research and teaching cooperation between higher education institutions in Germany and in the countries in the global south more accessible to development cooperation. And currently, 7 interdisciplinary projects with different subjects are funded by this program. Please, the next slide gives you an overview on all the programs and projects which are funded by DAAD. Most of them are focusing on development of the society, renewable energy, and also urban sustainability, things like this. And there's one program in Munich, in the Ludwig, in the university in Munich, which is aiming to support the education of medical doctors from African countries and from Latin America. But our project is a little bit different because we are focusing on social work and the role of social work in strengthening NGOs in development cooperation to treat drug addiction. The next slide, please. This shows the region where we are working. It's the Central Asian countries which got independent in 1991 from former Soviet Union. They had been part of Soviet Union and now they are independent and have their own origin, their own languages, their own social cultural dimension. And then you see here on the picture, they are bordering to Afghanistan on one hand or to China on the other hand. And that gives us the opportunity to work also with universities in this region, but also in China. And the next slide shows you a little bit more the details of this program. Because we have several goals. One is to jointly develop research programs on the influence of social work on the prevention and the treatment of drug and opiate addiction, with the main focus on the role of NGOs and non-governmental organizations in this region. We want also to develop courses and training curricula for social work with drug consuming and addicted people who are also living with HIV and hepatitis C, which is a big challenge. And also, we work on exchange of German and Central Asian and Chinese scientists and study and research stays in Frankfurt or now later on also in Nuremberg in Germany and in Central Asian countries and in China. The next, please. Well, we have been the first phase of this program. It started 21, uh, is finished at the end of 24, and we already published an overview on the 5 years of experience, and we could strengthening the social work as an independent academic profession field and research area in all the partnering countries and universities, and is an interdisciplinary cooperation between social work and social medicine, which is helping hopefully to improve also the services for drug users, not only academic research work, but also uh, improving of the services for people. It's but also on a research project. We have a lot of publications, and we want to contribute to a better understanding of the role of social work in the treatment of drug addiction. And I will go in a lot more into details in the next slides. Next, please. Well, these are the cooperating universities which we are working with. As already mentioned, we did the first part of this project has been done by the Frankfurt University of Applied Sciences and the Institute of Drug Research at this university. But because Professor Heino Stöber, who had been in charge as project leader of this solid project, the first part, will retiring in March this year, we changed now the university, and the new university will be in Nuremberg in the southern part of Germany. It's a technical high school, but also educating social workers. And we're working now together with Professor Daniel Daimel, who has been working in these fields for many, many years, is social worker by profession himself, now is educating social workers at this university. We're cooperating with the Bishkek State University, which is the first and maybe the most important one in the Kyrgyz Republic, which is educating social workers. We cooperate in Kazakhstan with the Eurasian National University in Astana, in the capital of Kazakhstan, which is also educating social workers. And a little bit different from this is our cooperation in China. We cooperate with the Chinese, the Shanghai Mental Health Center, and which is cooperating with the Shanghai Jiaotong University and the School of Medicine. And in this university, they are not educating social workers, but medical doctors who are, or maybe psychiatrists who are working with drug users. And this is one important part of their work. And I had got the opportunity to work with them in 2004, 2006, and they're doing quite good work in educating social medicine. So a kind of medicine, but also focusing on the social situation of people using these substances. And we cooperated in the first phase also in Uzbekistan with the Bukhara State Medical University, which is educating medical doctors. And we will change later on now to the National University of Uzbekistan in Tashkent, which is also educating social workers. So these are the main partners in these countries. The next slide, please. And this project is focusing on three more or less focuses. One is social work with drug users. And so we want to educate social workers to get a better picture and idea what is addiction, what is dependency, what are the differences in this field, what can be done for people who are using substances, which are mostly forbidden and and we also want to focus on HIV/AIDS and tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is a big problem in these countries, especially in Central Asian countries. And also, COVID had been a problem because in our last project, more than 2 years, we had only virtual contact to the Chinese partners. They had not been allowed to come to Germany or to other countries. Now it's had been improved, but that was a very difficult situation also for them. And last but not least, we are focusing on social work with prisoners because most of the people using these substances, um, so-called illicit substances like heroin or cocaine or some of these substances or new psychoactive substances, NPS, they are, most of them has also the experience in prison. And we also focusing what can be done for these people, what is the role of social work in prison system. So the next slide, please. Well, and we also want to cooperate in this in this regard with the International Federation of Social Workers and also the Federal Association of Social Work of Association School of Social Work. These international federation are focusing and supporting social work education, but mainly not focusing on the situation of drug users. And so our project want to do this, but we also support in these countries which we are cooperating with, that they will be get member of these international federation of social workers, and especially in Kazakhstan, our partner in Kazakhstan had been working on also establishing and founding a national alliance of professional social workers. That is very helpful in our project. One of the uh, not intended positive effects, but it was very important for them. And we would like to do this cooperation and strengthening also in the Kyrgyz Republic, Uzbekistan, also in China. The next slide, please. This shows a little bit the background, what is happening, why do we work on social work with drug users in this region? Well, this region, especially Eastern European countries, Russian Federation, but Eastern European countries like Ukraine or Belarus and others, but also the Central Asian countries have been, how to say, focusing a big problem with HIV/AIDS. So you see on this picture the data from the surveillance from the ECDC, the European Center of Disease Control in Stockholm, in Sweden, which is collecting all the data of this region and shows that we have a big problem with HIV prevalence among drug users in Russian Federation. Although the picture is not clear, we don't get reliable data now from the Russian Federation, but also in Central Asian countries, especially in Kazakhstan, we have a high percentage of people, but also in the neighbor region to Afghanistan, especially Tajikistan, also Uzbekistan and Kyrgyz Republic. And this is by, this region is, sorry, yeah, this region is part of the so-called northern route of opiate traveling and smuggling through Central Asian countries from Afghanistan to the Russian Federation, and it is estimated by the UNODC that 90 tons every year is smuggling through these countries, and about 15 of tons are staying in the region. That means they have a high percentage of people, the high prevalence, much higher in the European countries, Germany, of drug users, of heroin users in this region. There might be a change now because of the ban of cultivation of poppies in Afghanistan since 2 years ago. It might have some new consequences. I come back to this later on. A change from opiate use to other substances, but we will see what is happening. But up to now, it's mostly a problem of opiate use and problems with opiate use. The next slide. This is the situation in China, as China is situated nearby the so-called Golden Triangle and Golden Crescent, especially nearby Myanmar, which is it's still the second most important producer of opiates and heroin, which is coming through Myanmar to northeast China. northwest China, but also to the border region. The big cities like Shanghai, Hong Kong also had been in this route, and also later on Beijing. So they have been they focusing they estimating 2.4 million um, heroin users, but this the number is going down a little bit, and more or less more and more methamphetamine users have problems, and this is the big problem, and also a challenge in China, but also maybe also in Central Asian countries in the near future. So this is the background why we focusing on this programs and on this situation. The next, please. Well, as I already mentioned, I have been working for a little of country of a little of years, a certain part of years in Central Asian countries, because I have been working for the EU program CADA, the Central Asia Drug Action Program. It's now in the seventh phase, and the European Commission is supporting this program. And the idea is to get better picture on the situation in these countries and to exchange experiences how to deal with this opiate use and the treatment of opiate users in cooperation with European countries. And at this phase, have been working there and have been traveling to all these countries. And we supported so not social workers in this phase, but medical doctors, so-called narcologists, so people who are working with drug users, and to support them to get better ideas how to do it, to use methadone treatment, for example. It's been using in all these countries, but in a very low level. It is better used in China, but anyway, we supported them with our experience from European countries, and but also involving NGOs and to respect human rights for drug users, which is very important for us. So, and we used this program also for our new program because when I lived there, we realized that social work is underdeveloped, and social work in Germany at least plays a very big role in drug treatment, but in Central Asian countries it's starting phase, and that's why we are very happy that we now can focus on the education of social workers and help them to get better ideas how to deal with drug use and treatment of drug use and prevention of drug use behavior. So the next, please. Yeah, this program, as already mentioned, is still working, and some of our partners are also part of this program. And what has been showing in the last 2 years, it's a changing of pattern of use. And Central Asia has witnessed a progress shift from escapist, so-called escapist pattern of use to a kind of normalized recreational pattern. So NPS is more or less now used in Uzbekistan, but also in the Kyrgyz Republic and also in Kazakhstan. We don't know exactly how many people are really using these substances, but there is a kind of change of these substances, and whereas heroin use is declining. So the next phase, please. Yeah, what is the political basis or the drug policy background? Is this Angus outcome document, because there had been a special session of the United Nations uh, global programs in 2016, and there had been and at that time I was working with the Ministry of Health and was part of the delegation in New York at this meeting, and that was for the first time that the UN developed a special document which is focusing on this problem and say drug users are not criminal people. They should get treatment. They should get access to services and no longer being put into prison. That was the first time. It was a very important document. And part of this discussion there was the development of standards. I know that ICUDDR is also working on standards for universities, but the UN ODC had been working on standards for treatment of drug use disorders. And these standards are really, and also the UN is asking all the member states to use these standards. And these standards are based on human rights, are based on latest scientific evidence how to deal with these problems, including methadone treatment or including deep treatment in prison systems and so far. So these standards are part of also of our programs, and we educating especially our partners and partner universities to use these standards also in practice. This next, please. Uh, yeah, and the background also when we worked in the Kyrgyz Republic in the Central Asian Drug Action Program, we realized the big problem of HIV/AIDS, as already mentioned, and we worked at that time on the role of social work in Central Asian countries. And these are the more or less six most important tasks of social workers. So to implement case management, which has been quite new. It is known in the United States, it's known in European countries, but in Central Asian countries, it's still in the starting phase. The same is true also in China. And to use case management for on the need to use to know the needs of the key groups and their specific needs, and to develop social support programs for these people to improve the quality of life of these people. It should be an interdisciplinary approach, not only by medical doctors, which is mostly the case in Central Asian countries, but also by social workers, but also by NGOs and psychologists. It is important to fight stigma against the word to fight against stigma, and social workers can play a very important role in this regard. And it should also protect the human rights and interest of those affected, and also to do lobbying and public awareness campaigns for this problem. And last but least, to provide social services and humanitarian aid for these people. Next slide, please. The same is true in China. When I started to work in China, I realized that they are also starting with professionalization of social work. And China is quite quick in this regard. They had been, they are more developed than in Central Asian countries. In Central Asian countries, only one university in each country is educating, one or two educating social workers. In China, there are now more than 350 universities who are educating social workers, but only a few do it with a focus on social work with drug using people. But they are working quite high, efficient, and they also have a social work education journal, which is also helping to do scientific work. The next slide, please. So these are the main goals of our program, and this is based on the implementation of the so-called Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And especially this is why also this program in Germany is supported by the BMZ, that is the Federal Ministry of Development organization, and not only, and also by the Ministry of Education, but mostly because of the Ministry of Development Cooperation, because it's based on supporting the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. Next, please. So, and what we're doing, we supporting 15 young researchers, 3 in each country. They are funded to work on their dissertation to explain the role of social work and social medicine in drug aid and in their country. We started in the first phase of the SOLID project, and end of 24, most of our 15 researchers are now ready and with their dissertation, and we have the idea that these people should be also in the next phase our main person who will do education of social work at the universities where they are situated. At least this is the long-term idea and support of our project. So the next, please. What we're doing also, we try to use new education models, for example, e-learning courses and e-learning tools, and we are in the starting phase. It's not yet achieved, And when you look to our website, you will see some of these ideas how to do e-learning courses. And we used especially videos about what is social work done doing in Germany with drug users and how can be this part of social work implemented also in other countries. And there's also one videotape by our colleagues from Kazakhstan. They are doing it quite well. But we already will complete these education of or the learning e-learning tools, better using of e-learning tools in the next phase, which is starting in this year and in the next 5 years. So the next, please, yeah, what is the background of our educational programs? We adapt the design of a master program developed at the Frankfurt University to implement international standards of therapy of drug use disorders in a curricular manner. And such a degree has so far been completely lacking in Central Asian countries and in China, and that's why we are supporting it. But it's still very difficult, and we use the so-called competence profile of the German Social Work Association, who is working with drug users and with people with addiction and dependency. And we translated this profile into English, but also into into Russian language and into Mandarin, so that this profile can be used also in our partner countries. And this profile shows ideas how to implement this education in the universities and how to do it in practice. So the next, please. And here you have the picture in our project. And in the first phase, we invited our students and those which we supporting in the countries to Frankfurt and to have a meeting to present their ideas and for those it was very first time to present to other people their ideas and their dissertations and to do it also in English because especially in Central Asian countries most of them when we started only speaking Russian and now most of them are speaking quite well English. Our Chinese colleagues are quite better in at least in writing in English. It's not, sometimes difficult to understand their kind of English, but anyway, they're doing it quite well. And this is a very important experience for our students to do this, to explain their dissertation, to do these lectures for other people and helping to spread their ideas and to discuss with each other. So the next, please. Yeah, we also did a lot of publications. We more than 68 articles had been published in mostly peer-reviewed international journals. That was also a very big challenge because most of our people in Central Asian countries have never before published an article in an English journal and or an international peer-reviewed journal. So we supported them to do it and to help them to do this kind of publication. And secondly, we organized a book publication series with enormous publisher house in Germany, which is quite famous in Germany. And we used their expertise in organizing and publishing books, focusing on the role of social work in drug treatment, in culture of social policy in Central Asia and China, focusing on social work in prison, focusing on HIV/AIDS and hepatitis C in these countries, and also to focus on new psychoactive substances, and last but not least, on the role of NGOs, especially in Central Asian countries, uh, where social work is still in the starting phase. This kind of social work is mostly done by NGOs, and NGOs means mostly former drug users or drug users in substitution treatment. So we support them also to get a better professionalization. But this is still a challenge, but it's very important to involve them also in our programs because most of our students have never had contact to drug users themselves or to this group before. But in our project, we bring them together. So we also when we invite them to Germany, for example, to Frankfurt, we show them the drug scene in Frankfurt. We show them all the services which are existing. and we invite them to get access to this, to get the idea what they're doing, why they're doing it. And so it's a quite good exchange of experience, but we can also involve them into research work, and also later on to take part at international conferences. So we use the money we got also to invite our people to international conferences in Europe, in Germany, but later on also hopefully more and more in Central Asian countries, also in Asia. And that will be part of the next phase, because this is very important for them to get access to these international conferences, to get better ideas on this, and to present their ideas at these conferences. Next, please. Yeah, and also we help them, and we ask them to do lectures by themselves. So all our NGO, all our people, students, which we are supporting, do lectures at their universities. This is a very this is the idea that they should be active in educating also other students at their universities. That should be done in the long term of our project, that our people should be later on the professors at their universities. Next, please. So one of most important experience was the International AIDS Conference in Munich last year, and we got the opportunity to invite all of our people to in a delegation of more than 25 people coming to Germany to this conference in Munich with more than 15,000 participants, and to help also to use this. We organized special sessions. We help them to get information, to get contact to other people in this regard, and that was very helpful. And we also could produce a book on the HIV/AIDS situation and the role of social work in Central Asian countries and China in English language, and could provide this book at this conference. Next, please. Yeah, I'm already coming to an end, because this had been my personal experience in Central Asia. As I mentioned, I have been working for this European uh, Union program, and here are some of the pictures with my colleagues and friends. For example, the picture with my colleague. This is a colleague, Alexander Zelechenko. He was a former police officer. He fought against drug users and against the smuggling of drugs. But then he realized that putting these people into prison does not really help them to get better ideas and to get a better situation in their countries concerning using of substances. So he changed his mind. He's now a supporter of harm reduction services, and this is very important. And also he educating police officers in Kyrgyz Republic to treat drug users better. For example, before, when a drug user came to a service to get methadone, sometimes the police stopped him before. And this has changed because of this education work of our project. Uh, but anyway, and also in the picture downstairs, it shows our colleague in the methadone treatment. And one of these people, he is a very helpful guy who has been former drug user himself, and is now advocating for methadone treatment in his country, Tajikistan. On the right side, you see a picture. This is a prison in Kyrgyz Republic, and we supported with the Central Asian Drug Action Program this prison to implement within the prison system a special service for treatment of drug use disorder. Because especially in Kyrgyz, but also in other countries, Central Asian countries, many of these prisoners are using heroin even in the prison, and heroin is also part of the prison system. And that's why we said we must do some special trainings and help them to get a better access to treatment. So it's a kind of prison in the prison, so that a little bit that they are secured not to get to being provided with heroin, but to get treatment. That's very important. But it's only one prison in the Kyrgyz Republic, and we hope that will be others in Uzbekistan, and also in Kazakhstan in the next future. The next, please. Yeah, and this has also been my experience in China. As already mentioned, I have been working and living together with my wife 2006, 2008, and that time it was the starting phase of methadone treatment in China. And they already started earlier with HIV/AIDS services because they had a big problem with HIV/AIDS among the region, to the border region to Myanmar, but then all over China. And they started with series exchange supported by Australian experts. Later on, they started with methadone treatment. And when I was in Shanghai, I also had the opportunity to organize, had been part of a special conference organized by the Shanghai, one of by the East China University of Science and Technology, which had been the first university in China to educate social workers. They invited me to do some lectures there, and they organized an first international conference. Could be also part of this conference, and they had I also got contact to the so-called Council of Shanghai, the Zhejiang Social Services. It had been one of the first services of drug social workers who working with drug users in Shanghai and later on in all over China. And that was a very good cooperation. I could also start with educating and lectures at this service organization. And now, when I came back last year to China and to Shanghai, they are now developed very much in this regard and doing quite good work. Next and last slide. This is my personal experience and partners in the Chinese in China, especially in Shanghai. And at that time, I worked also together with an American US psychologist and psychotherapist. He was David Powell. He has been a very famous family psychotherapist in the United States. And he was invited by the Shanghai Mental Health Centers to do lectures there on psychotherapy, and I could join his lectures. That was very helpful experience. Unfortunately, he died some years ago because of heart attack very suddenly. This is not good. But also the Professor Jiao Min, at that time, she was head of the treatment center of this Shanghai Mental Health Center. Now she's president of the Shanghai Mental Health Center, and she's very supportive in this regard. But also had a discussion and had a relationship to Professor Hudong Zhao. He had been lived formerly had invented developed the treatment of the methadone treatment in the border region to Myanmar. Later on, he came to China, and I had to get a good relationship because he studied psychology and social medicine in Germany, in Heidelberg. And his dissertation, he did this dissertation on the role of psychotherapy and family psychotherapy in Germany and in China. And he did his dissertation, he wrote it in German language, and he speaks still quite fluently German. And I had got the opportunity to visit all these services in Chinese, not in only in China, Shanghai, but also in Beijing, and also the first methadone treatment centers. And that was a very, very helpful experience. And that helped me also now to involve this university in our project in now with supporting social work in this regard. So I think that was the last, or is it? Yes. So thank you very much for your attention. This is the group of our project leader now, the new project leader, Professor Daniel Daimel, the previous Professor Heino Stöver, and our group with Dr. Ulla Pape, Dr. Marian Grabski. She had been working long term in the United Kingdom, and also Dr. Kasia Kowalczyk, she's working in Poland, also on harm reduction issues. So it's a very good team to work with them together, and hopefully we can continue to educate more social workers and to help also to get a better idea on this role of social work, and also to work more closely together with your organization, which might be very helpful. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ingo, for that presentation. If you have questions, feel free to type it in the chat box. We'll address it later. But I'll start the ball rolling with a few questions of my own. So you mentioned several times about the collaboration. So my question is more on the pragmatic side. So you work with it's a inter-university, but you also work with NGOs. So how
Yeah.
are you able to establish those partnerships?
Good question. When I worked in China and also now in China, it's much more difficult. There are NGOs, but and also social workers, but also how to state under, let's say, the state has much more influence than, for example, in Central Asian countries. Anyway, it's because of the HIV/AIDS crisis. It was necessary to involve those people affected to deal with this problem because they realized that the state alone in Central Asian countries is not, the same was true for Germany, is not able to deal with all these problems. Also in Germany, we started to develop a close cooperation to NGOs. I myself, when I started 35 years ago, or even long ago, with the AIDS service organization supported by the government, but we involved drug users and gay people in this organization because we had been aware that only these people who are affected by themselves had access to other people and had better ideas how to deal with this problem. Professionals can help, but not alone. And that's also important for us to involve these people and to get them to help them to get access to universities. And especially in the Kyrgyz Republic, when I was there are some of the professionals at the universities, some of the professors there, very open-minded. They involve NGOs. They ask them, please come to our university to do lectures about your situation, about what has your experience. And we do the same in Germany, in Frankfurt University, and also in Nuremberg, where we will continue. Our cooperation partners, the Professor Daniel Danville and so Professor Heinz Stöver, he involves also NGOs, and he asked his students to go into the services and to speak with these people, to get access to them, to understand the needs of the persons. Otherwise, it's only academic work, and this is not enough. But you're right, it's not easy because although these people have much experience, but they have not the profession to get experience, so they are not paid for this. This is one of the problems. This is also the problem because in Central Asian countries, most of these people who are doing this work had been paid by US aid, and so, for example, and by other international organization or global fund money, and they will not be able to continue this work. And also because there are new laws, very strict laws from coming from the Russian Federation to also to Central Asian countries like Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, which say NGO people are spies. And if, especially when they get money from outside, from foreigners, uh, foreign organization or international organization, they are called spies, and it's very difficult to them to work to complete their work. But we try to convince also politicians in these countries that they get not access, they cannot deal with drug dependency in their countries if they don't involve the people affected. The same is true, we know, is in Germany, because the most biggest problem in Germany is not opiate use, but alcohol. We have a lot of people who got problems with alcohol and also alcohol dependency. And that's why also in the self-help groups of people dependent to alcohol has a long tradition in Germany, and we involve them also in our program.
Thank you so much for that. I would just like to reiterate because, like, I think that you have like responded beautifully and with several key highlights, right? So you talked about, yes, we work with people. I like what you mentioned when you said that even in Germany, because like normally we have the preconception that this is just a low or middle income country issue, but we recognize that even in high income countries, like
Yeah.
NGOs plays a very important role. And then you also mentioned how important it is that yes, we engage people from the ground. We have a bottom up approach, but at the same time, like it's also like it would be beneficial to engage like policymakers,
Yeah,
politicians, to make it more. And I love the fact that you acknowledge the expertise of those people with live experiences. We
yeah,
have different form of expertise, whether it's clinical, academic research, but people with live experiences also have something to contribute. So working, building that relationship and like reaching out, I would say, like
yeah.
right, trying to work within the community is a good way to go. Um, sir, you mentioned about e-learning courses that you share. Is this available for the public or it's exclusive to the your partners?
No, it is. It's part. When you look to our website, I forgot to mention our website. It's www solid minus exceed dot org. So maybe I forgot to put it into my presentation. Uh, but if you look to our website, you will get access also to these e-learning courses. But you will also see they are not so developed as we would like them to be developed, because they should not only be used by the people we support with our students, but also by the public. Everybody who get access to the website should have also access to these e-learning courses. And in the next phase, which has been starting this year, but it's still in the new starting phase for the next 5 years, we would like to improve this access to these e-learning courses, and that also those who are not part of our project can use it for their own development and improvement of their knowledge so far.
Thank you so much. Carly, put the website so on the chat box
I
if you guys are interested, and we'll also try to
Yeah,
share it with, yeah.
yeah,
So
that
you have access to materials that's available. It's basically public domain. So thank you for that, sir. That would be very helpful. And then when you talked about supporting NGOs, how does it translate into practice? Like, what do you mean when you say support NGOs?
well, we have, of course, we using our experience from Germany. As I already mentioned, I started with an NGO. I worked with an NGO. From my professional background, I'm a sociologist, but I worked with with NGOs and in Germany with the German AIDS service organization. And it was founded by the gay people, because gay people in Germany had been the first group who had been problems with HIV development. But the government at the time was very open-minded. It was a Christian Democrat, a conservative government, but the minister of health, she was very, how to say, she's realized the problem and said, we at the state cannot help to deal with this problem. We have to involve the gay organization, and they're quite strong in Germany, but also, and we started also to involve drug users into this movement. In the starting phase, it was very difficult to get them. We invited them coming from the street to come together in a hotel, organizing a workshop. At the starting phase, it was very difficult. And I always get complaints by the officers or by the directors of the hotels. There was some blood at the walls and things like this. But anyway, they had been more or less open-minded, and also the government supported us, gave us money to invite these people to organize trainings. And later on, they organized themselves and started to develop a drug user organization. They called Yes, because they involve drug users, but also ex-users and also people on substitution. So junkies, ex-users, substitutees, and this organization is now more than 40 years old and doing 35 years and doing quite good work, and supported in many cities in Germany also by local governments. That was, and now we have the commissioner in the government who is open-minded. He invited these people to inform him what are your needs, what are your experiences, and this is very important. And we try to start this kinds of how to say, involve these people in the governmental structures, at least that governmental structures and politicians are listening to them and give them the space. And we try in our project to learn from this experience from European countries, also in Central Asia and China, although it's quite difficult in these countries, but they are, I think they're learning from this experience, as I mentioned, especially in Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, uh, Tajikistan. NGOs are doing this work. They are not paid for this, or very, but these people doing this work, they provide syringes, they help people to get in methadone treatment or in drug-free treatment. They inform the public on their demands, but it's of course difficult. But we try with our project at least to help them and to get better access. And then we invite also politicians and governmental representatives from Germany to go to these structures in Central Asian countries and China to explain to them how it can be done. And we hopefully, yeah, we have quite good experience, and hopefully experience from the whole European Union, because in all not not only in Germany but in the whole European Union, harm reduction measures are done. Drug use is not seen as a criminal activity, but it's seen as it is focusing on helping these people to get treatment, to get access to prevention, and that's even in prison systems. So this is quite convenient in most countries in European countries, not in all, but it's a quite helpful experience because also European Commission and some programs by EU are focusing on this.
So what I'm hearing is that you guys started with workshops, training, and basically became conduit with this population to other
Yeah,
areas. So in return, you advocated for them. So now in return, they're advocating for others, right? So that's a
yeah,
good way to pay it forward and with the community.
yeah, and also to support students to do not only academic work for, how to say, for book shelters, but only for the practice, to improve the practice. This is very important. That we try to convince them it's good if you do a dissertation to do research work, but what should be done in the end? It's not only to produce a book. It's nice, it's good, also to publish an article in international journals. It's helpful, but that should not, in the end, it should be improve the living situation, the quality of life of people affected with these problems.
I like that very much. So yes, we do research, but that research has to translate into practice,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Thank you. Are there any other questions? So we still have 6 minutes. We can entertain a few more questions. Um,
Just realizing there's some people attending from India, and I would like to mention that our university in Bishkek especially has now some connection with the University of India, and we would like to support this in this new phase, that they strengthen this kind of cooperation. The same is true with our Chinese colleagues, because when I was living in China, I was also very often in Hong Kong. At that time, it was still a British colony, but it was very important because in Hong Kong, social work education has a long tradition. And especially in this tradition, they also helped mainland China when they had been part later on of mainland China to implement social work in mainland China, and also to implement substitution treatment, because that had been done. Methadone treatment has a long tradition in Hong Kong for more than 40 years. And so they would had been very helpful to implement uh, methadone treatment in China, in the mainland China, so Shanghai, Beijing, other cities in the country.
So I guess like my last question would be regarding, like you mentioned about social work, and in some, so for those working in the universities, like they are not, so most of the time it's underutilized in a lot of areas, as you have mentioned. So what are your tips on how do we actually engage social work in this field, or even like for those who are in the universities, like to strengthen their social work program? So what would be your tips for them?
Good question. It's not easy to answer because especially social work with drug users or with people, dependent people, is also in Germany. Only very few universities are focusing on this. Most of them have we have a long tradition of educating social work and social workers, but only a very few people are focusing on this. In Germany, and on the other hand, we have the opportunity that social workers are also part of rehabilitation programs. They can do the same work then with a special additional education at in the universities. They are also involved in treatment, so they can do the same as psychologists and even medical doctors, paid in the same level and should be working together. So that's why I'm focusing on interdisciplinarity. But anyway, it's still we also in the starting phase to both to implement social work because in Germany we have, as you might know, there had been special universities, so-called University of Applied Sciences, not real universities. The real universities sometimes looking a little bit downstairs and say, "Oh, social work is not part of science," for example, and that has been changed in the last years, and we try with our program to implement more and more social work as a real scientific research work and education work, and hopefully we get a little help. We can helpfully try to implement it. And I would like to also to my colleague to be part of your organization to how to say to help other universities to get better access to this and to implement social work as a part of the disciplines. Because most, for example, in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyz Republic, there is not a department for social work in the university, but department of sociology. Or and they under this department of sociology also social worker are educated, but they have no how to say identity for themselves as a profession, and that we would like to change a little bit.
So it seems that like this is a work in progress, like any other
Yeah,
aspect of the drug demand reduction anyways, right? So
yeah.
we do with prevention and treatment and even education. So we try to strive for the better. But we do love that, like we welcome your colleagues to be ICUDDR member, and also for members of our audience. If you're interested, or if you have question, just send us a question and we'll be happy to accommodate you. So I guess so we're like 2 minutes before the end, and I would like ICUDDR would like to thank Dr. Ingo. Thank you so much for an informative session. We appreciate your presence. And also to our audience, thank you for being here. We hope to see you. I
Mhm.
would like to invite you to our next webinar, which would be on March 17. It's about a little bit about you have mentioned it's quality assurance, but this one is in education. And we would like to highlight competency based in addiction education. So thank you,
Mm.
everyone, and we hope to see you again. So have a great day. Dr. Ingo, thank you once again.
Thank you, thank you very much.
Goodbye.